Welcome to the Inner Entrepreneur. I'm Paul Ryan. Have you ever wondered what financial road you're on? Are you someone who's likely to retire wealthy, or are you on the road to retiring broke? And both of those are roads. And what I mean is, people step onto that roadway early on in their life, and they may not be quite aware of the destination they're heading to, but they're heading to a very specific destination. And as I look back over the decade, I can see clearly the road I stepped onto, but I can also see very clearly the road people I know very well that they stepped onto a different road. And in the early part of the journey, they seem to be the same road. There doesn't seem to be that much difference. But as the year goes on, those differences compound. And the question I want you to ask yourself is, are you already on the road to being broke? Now, I'm going to point out 10 signposts, 10 warning signs that will tell you whether you're already on the road to retiring broke. The number one sign that you're on the road to ending up with no money is that you are already spending more than you earn. Now, this is a really poor financial habit. And most people with this financial habit make the mistake of thinking that it's an income problem, not an expenditure problem. They just think I'm not earning enough money. And when I increase my income by 5, 10, 15, or 20%, that will solve my spending problem. It won't. It never does. If you're one of those people who puts too much on your credit card, and when you get your credit card in, you can't pay it in full, so you're paying crazy interest rates because you cannot clear your credit card, then you are definitely someone who's living beyond their means. And if you're living beyond your means, you must sort that out now. You must start living within your current means, know what your income is, know what your outgoings are. Do not wait until you earn more money. I'm sure you've all seen, heard, read of celebrities, people who have made a lot of money, but who ended up broke. People who have made amounts of money that you or I would never dream of. And yet they end up at some stage broke. They end up penniless. And that's not an income problem. Obviously, they've earned an enormous amount of money. That's a spending problem. So you do not want to hope that your habits will change when you earn more money. They won't. Your habits will deteriorate when you earn more money, when you have more money to spend. So get your habits right now, because if right now, today, you are spending more money than you're earning, you are already on the road to being broke. The number two warning sign is that you live without a budget. You live without a plan. Of course, living without that budget and plan allows you to spend more money than you earn. So if you do not have a budget, meaning you've planned exactly what you're going to spend, and that can be in your rent or your mortgage or your utilities, food, transport, and absolutely leave something in there for fun, for entertainment, but you have to have a budget and you have to plan your finances. Because if you're not budgeting and planning your finances, you are on step two of the road to being broke. So the third signpost along the road to being broke is that you have no savings. And of course, if you're spending more than you earn, if you don't have a plan, if you can't pay down your credit cards, of course you aren't saving. And you won't have an emergency fund, which means you're probably continuously under pressure to put more on that credit card. You're now accumulating step one, two, three. You are making great progress, my friend. Great progress along the road to being broke and absolutely, definitely retiring broke. The number four warning sign to me that someone is on the road to retiring broke is that they don't have a pension or they're not availing of a company pension. Now, a pension is one of the best, safest ways to secure your financial future, to make sure that when you get to retirement age, you have enough money in an investment, in a pension to live off. Now, the wonderful thing about pensions, and I have to generalize here because I live in Ireland and you could be living in any other country around the world, but most pensions are tax free. And what that means is you take income before you pay tax on it and you put it into your pension fund. So that's very tax efficient. And secondly, you get to compound on that tax free money, which means you get to leave that in there and grow and grow and grow over the years or over the decades. Now, if you're fortunate to work for a big corporate, They probably have a pension fund matching scheme. And that means for every $1,000 you commit to your pension, they will match it. Now, I'm sure they'll have an upper ceiling on what they'll match, but it simply means that you take $1,000 or you pay tax on it, you put into your pension, and they will also take $1,000 before it's taxed and put it into your pension. My friend, you have just made a 100% return on your money. By you putting $1,000 into your pension, you have just doubled that to 2,000. You've also saved the tax on it, and you now leave that in the pension to compound and grow for you. So if you do nothing else, if you really don't think you're good with your finance and you do nothing else, only max out your pension contributions and take maximum advantage of your company's willingness and system to match that, that would be a wonderful thing you could do from your pension. And when I talk to people and they're not doing that at a young age, a warning sign comes up for me that these people are walking down the road to retiring broke. The fifth warning sign along the road to being broke is that you have no investment. But of course, if you have no savings and you have no pension, you're likely to have nothing in investments. If you want to retire financially secure, you will need to have a pension, you will need to have investments. So if you're not thinking about getting yourself some investments, you're well on the road to retiring broke. So I don't know how well you're doing so far. We're about to go to number 7. Have you ticked all the boxes? Are you matching all of these? Are you really doing a great job of retiring broke? Well, number 7 is one of the best tricks. If you want to find a sure way to waste your money, a sure way to ensure that you're going to end up penniless, number 7 is a great one. Buy an expensive car. Buy a car you can't afford with a high monthly repayment. It amazes me the amount of people who drive cars they can't afford, who are not putting money into pensions, who are not properly preparing for the retirement or for the financial future, and yet are wasting their money on an expensive car. Nothing wrong with liking expensive cars. I like expensive cars, but I will only drive a car that I can afford to pay cash for. And I'm stunned when I see people driving high-end luxury cars and they're paying enormous leases on these. It really is an enormous waste of money. I'm not saying you have to be able to pay cash for your car. For most people, that's just not realistic. Buy a car that you can comfortably afford and prioritize putting money into your savings, prioritize money into your pension and your investments, and then see what car you can actually afford. And please drive a car you can actually afford. Do you know that on the day you buy a new car and you drive it out of the showroom, I'm sure you've heard this many times, it loses something like 30% of its value. So if you borrowed money for that, you've taken it at a very high interest rate because car loans are normally very expensive. You've taken a very high interest rate loan on a depreciating asset, on an asset that will depreciate unlike anything else. So I advise buy a car you can afford, because if not, you are really making great progress down the road of retiring broke. The 8th warning sign that someone is definitely on the road to being broke is when someone only thinks short-term financially. They're all about spending their money now for instant reward, for instant gratification, and they can't or won't think about long-term gratification of reward they might get in the future. The sad truth is, if you want to accumulate wealth or just some degree of financial freedom and financial independence, whether that be now or in 30 years' time when you retire, it doesn't matter. But if you're not willing to delay some gratification, to put something away for that day in the future, if you're only willing to part your cash for something you can enjoy now, if you only live for today, I guarantee you 20 and 30 years is very likely to come quicker than you ever thought possible. And you will be broke when it comes and you will be filled with regrets. The 9th problem I see with a lot of people is that they consider themselves high net worth, but their net worth is all tied up in their home. Now, if you have a plan to downsize, so if you have a home that, let's say, is worth $1 million, and you reckon that when you retire, you can buy a small apartment or something that maybe is worth $300,000 and you will have $700,000 to live off, well, that sounds like a very, very good plan. But you have to really dig into that and see it. is a realistic plan? Will you actually be able to find a property that is that cheap that will allow you to release that much equity from your home? I know probably 2 or 3 people who have done this. I don't think it's worked out very well for any of them, because in all of the 3 cases I can think of, those people have had to move an hour and a half or so away from where they lived most of their lives, which means they've moved away from their family, maybe their adult children, their friends, their social life, and they find themselves living somewhere very remote where property is cheap. So they've ticked that box, but now they're going, well, I'm old, but I've no friends around me and I'm miserable and I don't want to live here. And so a lot of people will get to that situation and they just will be unwilling to move. So they live in an expensive home, but they've nothing to fund their life. And they effectively are sitting on an expensive property, but they're broke. And number 10, the final signpost that you are well on the road to retiring broke is that you left it too late. That you're watching this video and you know you're just too old, you cannot fix the problem. Now, I know people like this because I'm 58 years of age. And realistically, if I had left it until now to start getting my financial house in order, probably would have left it too late. Because if I hadn't already accumulated some wealth, accumulated some assets, I'm running out of those high income years because I'm getting older. And so if you leave it too late, it's a very difficult situation. And I know people in this situation. They realize they've behaved poorly when it comes to their finances. If you go through my other list of the 9 signposts you're going to retire broke, they probably tick all of those boxes. But at the time when they were young, it just didn't seem that important. But now that they're in their 60s, they're looking back and they realize they've made a mess for themselves. They're now too old to make more money and they're too old to fix their financial problems. And they're now faced with living the next 20 or 30 years in financial misery. I know lots of people in that situation. It's miserable. It really is unpleasant to find yourself old and not be able to take care of yourself, not be able to live comfortably, not be able to do the things you want to do. But that's the destination you're heading to. If you listen to these 10 items and you go, that's me, I do that, that's the road you're heading on. Now, I headed down a different road. I headed down a different road of prioritizing my finance, of planning for the future. And that leads you to a wonderful place. It leads you to a place where when you get towards your 60s and maybe beyond, that you're really well financially set up, that you have financial comfort, and now you have the freedom to live the life you want to live. That is a wonderful place to end up. But most people don't end up there because they simply don't plan that road. They don't walk down that road. So I'm laying out in this video the 10 signposts that you're on the road to being broke so that hopefully you will recognize them, change them, and you can change your destination before it's too late. I hope you will, and I hope this video provided some value. I'm Paul Ryan. This is the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. If you like the show, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends. It really helps us. Until next week, take care and thank you.